Hi my people, thank you very much for joining me. Welcome so much to Transform 360 with Susie. If you're new here, karibu sana, we love visitors. Kindly make sure you click the subscribe button, join this great family. And so we started our series on parenting, and I promised you guys part 2. If you've not watched part 1 of the previous session that we did, kindly go back and watch it. And we just explored on toxic parenting and what healthy parenting looks like, and also what dysfunctional parenting looks like. And so of course we were not able to do that whole session in one sitting, because guys, that would actually mean we cover almost 45 minutes to a whole hour, and that's just too long for online content. So we decided to break it into 2, so that now we can cover this part 2 as a continuation of the same. And so in the last session we explored toxic parenting, and so what kind of a toxic parent are you? That is the kind of question that we're asking ourselves today. First and foremost is to appreciate every parent who is joining us for this session. We appreciate the good work that you're doing, and it's very sad, because you find most often than not, as we become parents, we don't, like, no one takes us through parenting classes, for example, or no one prepares us for what to expect. And in fact, for most of us, or most people, they tend to raise their children based on the experiences that they themselves received as they were growing up, how they were treated by their parents, how they saw their parents raising them. That is exactly what they replicate in the lives of their children. And so, sorry for that. And so, as we said, of course, no one has that script or that manual. And how we parented our kids this far, I know we have done so to the best of our ability, and that is why, as T360 with Susie family, we appreciate you. We appreciate you for the far that you've come, for the efforts that you've put, for always working hard to ensure that you give your children the best. And so with this session, I know we will end up becoming better people. We will congratulate ourselves where we are doing well, where we feel probably there are areas of development. We'll be able also to invest in the same and just make ourselves better. And so in this section, we'll be tackling toxic parenting and the different types of, or rather the various types of toxic parenting. And remember, for some of us, in fact for majority of us, we cannot blame ourselves on how we've raised our children, because remember, like I said, we didn't have a script. Probably we followed what we saw our parents doing, and just because our parents raised us and we turned out the way we did doesn't necessarily mean that they raised us up in the right manner. Yes, they did their best, but might have been that if they were equipped with the necessary knowledge, they would actually have done better. And so this session is for each and every one of us to borrow a leaf and to learn from it. And so we begin. Number 1 is inadequate parents. An inadequate parent basically feels, or rather where they've ranked themselves as parents, they've placed themselves at a place where they feel maybe they are not competent to be parents. And please kindly know, this doesn't come with age, but it comes with probably some of the insecurities that parent might be battling within. And so maybe it could be a parent who's insecure about themselves, who suffers from low self-esteem, who maybe has never ever believed in who they are and the capabilities that they have. And so at any given moment, they view themselves as inadequate parents. And so what simply this happens is, it comes with a lot of feelings of guilt and despair. And the challenge that comes in with inadequacy as a parent is, you will find yourself probably most often than not tagging your child into the problems that you're experiencing as a parent. Probably maybe going to vent out to your child concerning the challenges that you're experiencing and how life is taking you. We're not saying that is bad, but you find that sometimes when we do these things, we end up overburdening our children with the thoughts and the feelings and the fears that we have, the problems that you're experiencing, until now the child ceases being a child anymore. And so what happens, they have to fit in some very big shoes and try now to act as an adult in a bid to try and console you as a parent, or just support you through whatever it is that you're facing. We are not saying that it is bad, but what actually happens is, the impact that it has on a child is the child actually becomes a mini adult when they're still young. You know, we deny them the opportunity of just being children, and we burden them with worries and issues of adults that they have to think about. And so through that, we end up raising children who in future tend to become extremely overly reliant or self-reliant, which is a good thing. But sometimes you find, based on the fact that they were denied the opportunity of being children and just doing the things that children do, experiencing what children experience, you have denied them something in their childhood. And kindly allow me to adjust my camera because I can see the sun is out and it might hinder clarity of the video. Yeah, I think this is a bit much better. We're facing away from the sun a bit. So that is the challenge that comes with being an inadequate parent. So what you're simply saying is, as a parent, it's important for you to save whatever it is that you get to share with your children. Not everything you go and vent out and, you know, release to the kids, because you end up even stressing them. It is too much for them to bear at their age. Some of those things, of course, the capabilities of handling them comes also with age. And so when you overburden them with such things, then you end up stressing them, worrying them, making them live in fear, anxiety, trying to figure out a solution for their mother, or trying to figure out a solution for their father, or trying their best to be there for you as a parent. And according to their abilities and capabilities, they're not able to do so adequately. And so this, of course, just breeds the feelings of fear, like we said, and a lot of guilt. Probably the child now will end up feeling bad that they were not able to support mommy through whatever it is that they were experiencing. They were not able maybe to console mom when they needed, when mom needed them most. And that makes a child really go through a lot of emotional turmoil. Then the second one is the controlling parent. Yes, you remember what we said about the controlling parent? You always want to meddle into the affairs of your children. And what actually happens is you make your child doubt their abilities. Or in fact, a controlling parent is one who doubts the abilities of their children. And so they tend to use care as an excuse for for really being into the child's business. You know, I care so much about you, I love you so much. It may actually be true that you care about them, but you know what? Sometimes it's good for you to just let your children live life, let them experience life. Don't be too caring, because when you're too caring, you're always providing that shield. You don't want them to experience challenges. Then how will they turn out? What will happen when you are not there? And in fact, most often than not, it will reach a point where you will no longer be in their lives, and they will have to handle challenges as they arise for themselves, and they will need to build the coping mechanism within themselves. So as a parent, a controlling parent, of course, they come with a part of, I care about you. You find also, sometimes also they come with quite a lot of manipulation, where, you know, they make the child feel, by you not allowing me to be involved in your life, then you're neglecting me as your parent, you're sidelining me, you do not appreciate the care and concern that I have over you. You see how some of these things play out. They might be in good faith, but in real sense, they end up having a negative impact in a child's life. And then, of course, it also comes with a lot of guilt, because now you make the child feel maybe they don't appreciate you very much as a parent, or you make them feel guilty that they're not involving you in some of these matters. I mean, it is okay for us to allow children to even as they continue growing, especially because, you know, of course, there's a certain age where as a parent you have to be involved in your child's life, and that is okay, and that is very much important. But as they continue growing, allow them to handle decisions that are within their scope as children. Yeah, decisions that they are within their age, decisions that are age related, that are age that are age what that are permissible based on their age. For instance, your child, even as they grow up, they've not ceased to be the infants, and of course they've grown maybe in primary school, and then you still want to choose for them what to wear, like the dress. And you're not saying that in this case now you allow them to walk indecently. No, what I simply mean is, maybe you might find you choosing for your child what you want them to wear. Maybe that they want them to wear this particular dress if it's a girl, and she's like, no mommy, I don't want to wear this dress today, I feel like wearing this. As long as it's, one, a decent dress, two, probably it's also weather friendly. Maybe if it's raining, it's cold, and it's weather friendly, allow them, let them have those small decisions, you know. Allow them to just make those small decisions as they continue growing. Probably they're around 10 years old. Allow them probably what to wear, the shoes that they would like to pair up with the dressing. And you know, if you have to guide them in a way that you won't make them feel like it's either my way or the highway. Reason with them, tell them, oh, those shoes are nice, but imagine if you wore the pink ones, they would look better because they match very well with the dress that you're wearing. Yeah, and that way you've already given the child room, first of all, to make a decision. Then from there, now you come in and ingilia kati as a parent, you see. Then of course, as they continue growing older, I'll let them also to handle decisions that are age related based on their development. That is very important. So don't dictate. And in fact, now what happens when you become a controlling parent? Of course, you end up dictating what your child will do, how they should feel, how they should think, the decisions that they should make. And you know, it's interesting because in psychology, I remember us learning when we were studying psychology, it was interesting because we got to learn that children actually seem to be very young, but they also have a mind of their own. Do you know that? And they're able also to think for themselves sometimes, and they're able to come up with decisions for themselves. So don't cripple your child based on the fact that you just want to think for them everything. Allow them to small things. You see the kind of decisions that I'm talking about that you can allow children to actually undertake, and that just helps them to build their decision-making skills and sharpen even their cognitive and even their intellectual. Another danger that comes with being a controlling parent is, remember, controlling parents most often than not fear becoming irrelevant in their children's lives or in their family. And so what actually happens is you end up making your child feel very helpless. Yeah, and you make them also over-reliant on you. I mean, as a parent, you also want some peace of mind sometimes. Not every time, everything. Your children come in, they're asking you, Mommy, by the way, did you keep for me my sweater? Some of those things, let them make that decision of arranging their clothes and how they want to arrange them. So at the end of the day, someone knows where they placed whatever it is that they need, so they don't have to keep on coming and asking you as a parent. At least that they even give you peace of mind as a parent, okay? Number three, toxic parent, substance abusers. And when we talk about this, we talk about this with a lot of love and a lot of concern and just a lot of empathy. If you're a parent and you're struggling with substance abuse, could be alcohol, could be other types of drugs. You know what usually happens with alcohol and substance abuse? What happens mostly is you find sorry, my people. You find most often than not, parents have very little time or energy even for the demands of parenthood. Parenthood can be very demanding. And you can imagine when you're intoxicated and you're battling that hangover, you're high and you're battling those withdrawal symptoms later, you don't even have energy to attend to your parental duties. And so what you're simply saying is it denies you the opportunity of being part and parcel of your child's life and just doing what you're supposed to do as a parent. And then other than that, you even find some parents who tend to be violent. When they're intoxicated, now they tend to be violent, they tend to act on impulse, they tend to be very angry, highly irritable. All these things just affect your children negatively. Other than that, they tend to also be very unpredictable because the child doesn't know, oops, should I talk to mom right now? Should I not talk to her? Right now when she's high like this, chances are when I talk to her, she will snap at me like crazy. So what am I supposed to do? Probably if it's a father who abuses drugs, when he comes home, probably he brings war breaks out between him and the wife, and even he beats up the children for no reason. They just tend to be aggressive, and you see the kind of environment that you allowing your child to grow in is very destructive. This actually makes them become extremely fearful, become extremely anxious, suffer from stress and depression. It affects their emotional, their psychological, their spiritual, their physical, their academics. It affects all areas of their lives. And remember, we said as a parent, when we are involving or indulging in some of these things, it also denies us the opportunity to be to play the parental role in our children's lives. When they need you to be sober and probably have those sober-minded conversations, when you should be expressing the love and the appreciation, the attention, the nurturing care that they need, you're unable to provide exactly that. And so what actually happens is, you find in fact most parents who are struggling with substance and alcohol abuse, for example, end up maybe blaming it on, I've been so stress levels. They also end up blaming it on things like, maybe work has been so stressful, I'm here trying to provide for you people, but you cannot see it, I'm going through a lot of pressure you guys cannot understand. We try to give all sorts of excuses for our substance use or alcohol use, or substance abuse or alcohol abuse, which is not right. And that just simply implies that maybe you might find a parent is battling denial. They are facing denial. They don't want to accept that they're actually having a problem that needs to be attended to, a problem that they need to go and seek, for example, if it's therapy, maybe be enrolled for rehabilitation, so that now they can, of course, become better. So that is an indication that there exists a problem. Probably maybe it could be also a parent who's just battling things within that end up making them respond in a certain manner, deep insecurities, childhood traumas, undealt issues, unresolved issues, and then of course now they end up trying to find solace in the alcohol and substance abuse, which at the end of the day becomes more destructive than helpful. So parents, kindly, if you're in this scenario, feel free to visit a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, for example, a clinical psychologist. They'll be able to help you walk that journey. If it's therapy that you need, you'll be given exactly that. If maybe you need to be enrolled for rehabilitation, exactly also that will also be done, because that is important not only for your well-being but also for your children. Then of course we have the verbal abusers. That is number 4. Verbal abusers tend to insult their children, to call them nicknames, for example, and some nicknames are actually not good. Let me give you an example. Maybe you have a child who's a bit plump, and then you call the her Kanono. Hey, aka Kanono ako wapi? Ebu mwambie akuje. Some of those nicknames appear to be not damaging, but they actually have very bad impact on the children. Or maybe you have a very talkative child, like an example that I gave earlier, and then unasema kwa wapi kiherehere. You've branded your child that, you call them kiherehere. That is the nickname that you use. So everyone in the compound, the neighbors, their peers, their friends, they call them by that name, because that is the name that you actually use for them. Humiliating your children, probably in front of people, telling them things that should not be telling them, things that are shaming, things that are victimizing, ridiculing them, being a sarcastic parent, always pulling statements like wacha uone huyo mwerevu benye atafanya. Maybe you've even just given them a chore or a task that you want them to attend to, and then you pull that statement. You're telling the sibling, for example, wacha uone benye huyo mwerevu atafanya. In real sense, mwenye unajua this mwerevu is in quotes. You're actually referring to mujinga, which you should not use such terms. I'm just using that as an example for you to see probably how sometimes we deal with our children, which is not right. And already that's actually a sarcastic statement. Yeah. So those are just some of the things that you should actually try and avoid. Making verbal attacks on your child or commenting concerning your child's appearance, for example. Maybe unasema huyu anakuanga mweusi, huyo sijui alichukua sura ya nani? Huyo alichukua sura ya ancestors. Ama huyo ni mweusi kama sura ya baba yake. Such statements are not good. You just make the child begin to not accept themselves as they were created, make them suffer low self-esteem. So don't make verbal attacks based on the child's appearance, the child's competence, maybe if it's in terms of school, or even just basic chores that you give them at home and how they tend to perform. Don't use verbal attacks in those regards. Don't also attack their intelligence, for example, or even just their value as a human being, because remember, they're human, they have feelings. They of course will be affected when you say some things, and the same way you wouldn't want someone saying those things to you just because they're children. Don't assume that when you say these things they're not affected. They are very much. And so as a parent, you should actually be very careful. Number 5, physical abusers. Yes, you know those parents who are incapable of controlling their rage, and when a child just does something, wamewarukia hapo like no one's business, mpaka unashanga we ini reso anafight na congestina ama ni msho anapiga. You know what I'm talking about? Parents who are incapable of controlling their rage, and so you find that they use it to control their children. Parents, kindly, this is one of the forms of toxic parenting. And remember, we usually say there's a very big difference between disciplining and punishing. Disciplining is done out of love. Disciplining is done out of love. Most often than not, punishment is done out of anger and rage. And when it comes to disciplining, a child is able to understand that you're beating them because of 1, 2, 3, because of the wrongs that they have done, not because you hate them. You are disciplining them because of what they've done, so that next time they don't repeat such a thing. And of course, again, it's also not beating the child every time they make a mistake, and probably you've not even talked to them, you've not corrected them and told them, now what you did is wrong, next time don't do this. This is how you should respond, for example. And you tell them, and next time if you do that, I will actually punish you. Sorry for using that punish, but I will actually beat you, because you have gone against whatever it is that you have agreed. You see, that way, even a child, when they do wrong, they'll actually understand why you're beating them. Punishing on the other, disciplining on the other hand is done when the parent, never discipline a child when your anger is here. You're so angry and you don't want to hear about anything. You don't want to even be told. You don't want to control yourself. You're busy beating them wherever, whichever way, not at all. Disciplining is done. In fact, it's actually advised when you want to discipline your child, if you're so angry at that particular time, you're so mad, allow first of all the anger to cool down, to go down a bit, then now discipline your child. That way, it is easier for you to administer discipline in the right way. And like when you do it when you're angry, when you're full of anger, rage is at peak, that way it tends to be more of punishment, because when you'll beat your child, they'll not even understand why you're beating them that much, and they look at you, first of all, they just see the facial expression, and it's just so scary and intimidating. And this punishing process is just, it's crazy. But when you discipline your child, probably you're even so mad at that particular time, and you just allow yourself to cool down, it gives you even more, an opportunity to even just process what you say before you say it. Chances are when we say things that we're angry, we say probably bad things to our children, and we're unable to reverse that. And so, of course, the impact, and they have a very lasting negative impact on the children. Probably they might never ever forget that mom called me this name. When she was angry, mom told me this. And they'll not be able even to understand that you are angry. That's why you say that. You know what I'm talking about? When you suffer from mouth diarrhea or verbal diarrhea, it's very difficult for you to take back those words later. So let us discipline our child. Let us not punish our children. Yeah? And don't use corporal punishment, where you beat up your child so much, you inflict wounds, you beat them mpaka umewatoa ngozi, they are bleeding. That is not disciplining. Now that's punishing, and punishing is actually a big X. Yeah, discipline your children with love. When you've cooled down, and even when you're disciplining them, call them, explain to them, make them understand why you're disciplining them. And before you do that, at least talk to your child when they do that very same bad thing the first time, for example. Talk to them, give them a warning. So next time when they do it, even as you discipline them, they'll actually understand why you're doing that, and they will know that you're doing that out of love. Because when you don't do that, that actually comes with a lot of negative impact on their mental, their emotional, and their physical. Yes, it becomes very, very bad. Other than that, number 6, we have the sexual abusers. And in this case, I'm talking about parents who abuse their children sexually. There's nothing as bad as undergoing incest, for example. And I talk about a parent in this case, doesn't necessarily mean a child that you have sired biologically. It could even be maybe your niece, your nephew, for example. Children who look at you and they see a father figure, they see a mother figure, they see you as an authority over their lives. It could even be even the children of your neighbor. By virtue of you being older than them, they view you as an authority figure. And it's not right for us to take advantage of children. Incest is one of the highest forms of betrayal and complete perversion. And that, we cannot entertain it, people. We cannot entertain that. If you're a parent and you're caught between this, kindly, it is high time for you to stop. Because this is wrong, this is a criminal offense, and it should be treated as such. That just basically breaks down the fundamental trust that the child has towards their parent. You can imagine you're the one who's supposed to be protecting your child, providing the safety and security, but you're the one who's actually abusing this. It is very, very wrong. It is emotionally destructive. It destroys the innocence of children at a very young age. They end up just giving way to helplessness and despair and constant anger and fantasies about revenge. They turn out to be bitter people, or even the flip side, now they tend to grow into adults who do these things to others. You know, people who you find abusing other people sexually, raping them. These are some of the things that you're saying are not healthy. This is actually extremely toxic. Number 7 is being self-centered. As a parent, you know, some parents are so self-absorbed, they are unavailable, they're selfish, they're uncaring when it comes to their children's needs. It is always about I, me, myself, and I, you know. And when you do this as a parent, basically you become physically, emotionally detached. You refuse to understand the feelings of your children. You are always self-absorbed. It is always about you. It is always about you. This is also one of the signs of a toxic parent or of toxic parenting. Self-centered behavior. The other one is being emotionally reactive. Parents who are unable to control their emotions. Remember, emotional intelligence is something that every parent should strive to have. If you're suffering from low EQ, it's important that you invest in that area. And basically, emotional intelligence is just about knowing how to react, when to react, knowing how to react, when to react, and just being aware of your emotions. This is very important. And so you find some toxic parents are unable to control their emotions, leading to emotional outbursts. They are very unpredictable. Their behavior is so unpredictable. Their children even just look at them and they cannot understand them because they don't know, whoa, what gets into my parent? Is she possessed or something? You know, sometimes she acts in a certain way that I can't just explain, I can't just understand. It's important for us to become to not become emotionally reactive, but instead it's better to be proactive, because then we know how to react, why to react in that particular manner, and at any given moment we are so aware about our emotions, how we are feeling, and we are in control. EQ is all about being in control and being in charge of your emotions. And we avoid all those things of overreacting and becoming overdramatic or dramatic and exaggerating incidences. All these are just instances of being emotionally reactive. And you see those memes and people like, I've forgotten that comedian's name, who acts like the mom and the child, you know. And you find like, mzazi kidogo mtu amefanya kitu alafu mzazi ashaenda, yani Susan, mimi nataka kunigonga ngumi, and really when that in the child was just even not necessarily alikuwa anataka kugonga ngumi, maybe hata ulikuwa unampiga alafu amereact na certain way, usha exaggerate wewe, ushasema unataka kunigonga ngumi, mimi mama yako, mimi mwenye nilikuzaa kutoka kwa tumbo yangu, unataka nikubeba miezi 9, do you know who you are joking with, do you know, in fact, do you know, mimi naweza kulaani. Don't be overreactive, man. You guys, don't be reactive, emotionally reactive parents. Just know how to master your emotions, okay? And then this we already said, yeah, we've already tackled that one. Demanding. Toxic parenting, one of them is the demanding nature. Overly demanding of their children, you know. You expect your children probably to disregard their own schedules, to disregard their own needs, to attend to yours, parents. And mostly you find overly demanding parents are always using the threats and manipulative behavior to seek attention from children. Guys, it is wrong. It is wrong, and it's actually toxic, you know. And I think some parents are actually culprits of this, especially older parents. Unapata bibi mzazi anakuambia yani nyinyi mliamua mtenda Nairobi kufanya kazi, amtaikumbuka mzazi wenu. Susan, umeamua kunisahau na unajua mimi ndo nilikulea, mimi ndo nimekubeba hizo miezi zote. You know. And probably hata juu anasema hivyo, maybe you had even sent them money yesterday, for example, and just because they've asked for money and you're not in a position to send at that particular time, now they start using manipulation and pulling some statements that just end up making you feel guilty that you've not done that. Or maybe they, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there are parents who, or rather their children maybe who even experiencing this with their parents. And so these are just some of the things that you're saying they need to be addressed. Don't be that kind of a parent. Emotional abusive parents. This is actually serious. You know, parents who have cruel jokes, for example, they maybe even do some things they should not be doing in front of their children. When it comes especially to their spouse, you find some parents doing some things that are inappropriate. They should not be doing in front of children. For instance, maybe making sexual advances in front of the kids. Maybe you find some parents who are consuming drugs, maybe in front of the children, for example, engaging in illegal activities as the children are watching, discussing adult issues, watching adult content, you know, all those things, as trivial as they may seem, that is actually emotional abuse. Discussing adult things like maybe legal troubles, finances. They end up arguing with each other in front of the kid. Kidogo, it has turned out to be fighting. They fight in front of their children. Guys, that is emotional abuse. And if you find yourself caught up in this, you really need to address that, because that leaves the children very much emotionally injured. Okay. The other one is manipulative behavior. You see, twisting the truth and always wanting to portray yourself as a parent as the good one. Maybe you've even had an issue with your child, but when your other partner or your spouse comes home, unageuzia mtoto and you're like, hey, imagine mimi hata nimwambia tu hivi, yeye akafanya 1 2 3 4. Maybe sasa hata wewe ndio ulikuwa na makosa kama mzazi, lakini unageuzia mtoto wako inakuwa sasa ndio alifanya nini, ndio alikuwa sasa ndio child is like, hey mom, mimi sikusema hivyo, mimi sikukwambia hivyo, in fact ndio uliniambia hivi. You know, parents, kindly, let us not be manipulative parents. Let us not engage in manipulative behavior, because you find mostly when we are using manipulative behavior, we tend to use guilt, for instance. We tend to use denial. We trivialize other people's feelings and thoughts just to achieve our goals. This is very much mean. It is mean. It is not good. Let us not engage in this. Unnecessary arguments in front of children. I've already said that any small thing you just want to argue, you insult maybe your spouse in front of your kids, you quarrel them. Some of these things, let us take them to the bedroom. Let us not do these things in front of kids. It is not right, people. It is not right. And this just ends up being very much toxic. It affects the children so much, not just now, but even in their future. Yeah. And, you know, handle these matters privately. Go to the bedroom where the children are not there. Talk about these things slowly. You don't have to shout at your spouse. You don't have to call them names. You don't have to fight for you to be heard. Let us find healthy coping mechanisms and healthy ways of coping with even challenges that are arising in our marriages. Let us not tag our children along into these fights. Screaming and yelling. You know, all these things just traumatize the kids even more. Critical behavior. Yes, this is very toxic. Never satisfied with your child's achievements. You're always pointing out what they're doing wrong. You're always pointing out their weaknesses. You're always, there's no one time that you'll ever congratulate them and tell them that they've done well. There's no one time that you'll ever even just recognize the small wins and tell them and appreciate them for what they've done. You're always finding fault, always pointing out their shortcomings, always pointing fingers, always mocking them, always calling names. Yeah, intentionally bringing up maybe even sensitive topics that maybe even the child is not just comfortable discussing. All these things are actually things that we should refrain from as parents, because those are very toxic. They end up hurting our children badly. Treating children like adults. Yes, my friend, I said earlier, let us allow children to be children. Let them engage in things that are child appropriate. Don't bridge or break boundaries that are there between children and adults. Don't give them, for example, roles that are adult like. Don't drag them into adult stuff, solving conflict, more probably having to look after their siblings because you as the mom, maybe you're highly intoxicated, you're not even in a position to look after your children, and so they have to step up and act as not only a sibling but also as a parent. Psychologically, physically, emotionally, they have to be there for their younger siblings. Guys, it is not right. It is not right at all. There must be very strict and very firm boundaries between children and adults. Don't treat your children like adults. Allow them to be children. Don't cause them to mature too fast and just deny them the opportunity to be children, to be provided for, to be taken care of, to be loved, to be nurtured. Do not deny your children this. And we also see this very much common when it comes to even maybe parents who are separated or divorced, and so, or maybe people who are also engaging in they are co-parenting actually. They are co-parenting, or maybe even some sort of blended family scenario, and maybe the child stays with this parent, then goes to visit the other, and then you just find a parent maybe telling the child, you know, let me tell you, unaona dada akikwambia hivi usifanye, ukienda kwa baba yako ama kwa mama yako akwambia hivi usifanye, usifanye, unaona mama yako anakuanga mbaya sana. Or maybe even telling the child, unajua babako hajakuwa akikulipia hata school fees, hakuna kitu anafanya. You're busy there about mouthing the other parent to the child, and maybe just telling them things that you're not supposed to be telling them, that actually affects them badly and becomes very much toxic. So kindly, please, let's refrain from that. Parents who thrive in keeping secrets and they don't want to acknowledge a problem, that is also very toxic. You know that there's an issue, but what you simply do is you choose to be silent about it. You don't talk about it. For instance, maybe you might find a child who has been abused by a member of the family or even a relative. Where kama mzazi una decide, hey, mistake kuongelelea hiyo maneno, let me just keep quiet and assume it never happened. Guys, that really affects the child so much. It affects the child big time. Kindly, people, being silent about some of these issues doesn't mean that the issues are being addressed in a healthy manner. Not at all. Instead, they end up causing so much trauma on the children, and trauma that is, if it was addressed then, they would actually be able to cope with it in a healthy manner. But just by virtue of not addressing it, it ends up causing even more wounds and becoming even more damaging. And remember also, of course, also telling the child, usijaribu kuambia mtu, umesikia, usijaribu kuambia mtu dadi alikufanyia hivyo ama mama alikufanyia hivyo, usijaribu kuambia mtu brother yako alikufanyia hivi na hivi na hivi, usijaribu kuambia mtu uncle alifanya hivi. Just making the child not talk about some of these things. Let us call a spade a spade. If something is not right, let us call it exactly that. Let us not sugarcoat. Let us not try to hide it, sweep it under the carpet, and just assuming that these things are not happening. They end up damaging our children more. And of course, there are so many effects of toxic parenting, a lot of effects of toxic parenting, and these are things that we should try to avoid, because you remember, toxic parenting actually can become a cycle. So trying to avoid these things will actually help us not to drag our children into all these negative effects that they end up suffering, probably at a later stage in life or even just in their latter years. And you find toxic parenting basically just gives birth to a lot of anxiety and depression in children. Yes, they end up suffering from anxiety, from depression, low self-esteem. They might develop even personality disorders. They might develop even post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of toxic parenting. Remember also, they experience difficulty in forming meaningful relationships after growing up. It becomes so difficult because remember we talked about the attachment and the socialization, that the impact that it has on the child. So how you treat them also affects how they interact with the environment, how they socialize with other people. So it becomes very difficult for them to form meaningful relationships with others. it also erodes the child's confidence and self-worth. They will never view themselves as valuable people because of the things that you put them through. And remember also, being an overprotective parent, what you simply do is you cause your child to lack the experience to deal with maybe pain, to deal with challenges in life, to deal with difficult situations as they arise, especially when they become adults. So it becomes very difficult. You tamper with their coping mechanism skills, their decision making skills, for example, their problem solving skills. And so even being overprotective is toxic. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. That is also toxic, and we should avoid that as parents. Other than that, you also make their children become highly self-critical. They tend to blame themselves for everything. When they land in wrong relationships, they will always tend to blame themselves as a result of you've always been overly critical. You've always pushed them or pushed them to be perfect beings, which is impossible. So you just make them to be overly critical. They will never appreciate themselves. They will never celebrate their small wins. They will never learn from their mistakes. They will never recognize that they're just human and they're work in progress and they're becoming better by the day. That actually impacts on a child negatively. Also, increased health problems in future. Research has actually shown that kids that come from families where they experience a lot of toxicity even have a high tendency of developing heart problems as they become adults, and weakened immune system. Yes, because remember, when one area of our lives is not okay, it affects all the others. So it is important for us to know that our toxicity really affects the kids in a bad way. They also have a hard time saying no and just making decisions for themselves. So they lack assertiveness skills. They are unable to say no because you always put them in that controlling, demanding environment, and they were not allowed to even just reason out with you. It was always your way or the highway. That tampers with even just how they turn out to be. So I hope you have learned something from that. I hope you have borrowed a leaf that it is important for us to always know and to understand that these are toxic ways that end up impacting in our children's lives negatively. And probably if you find yourself caught up in that, it's important. You can seek help, you can seek counseling, you can even just choose to address those issues as an individual and ensure that you're providing your kids with the best environment where they can thrive and become the best healthy adults in future. Thank you very much for joining me this evening and have a lovely evening. Goodbye.